And Jesus is saying it's what's coming out of your heart that's defiling you. So even though with your mouth you may be saying all the right things, still in your heart that bad doctrine, you're excusing yourself to sin, that's what's defiling you. Those evil thoughts and murders and fornications are coming out of you, and that's the hyper grace message. It may start off simple and peaceful because it seems to free you from legalism. But the problem is they don't know how to separate that from stopping themselves from going on further into sin. So what happens, in order to keep the same kind of peace and relief you have because you're no longer legalistic in the hyper grace message, that you have to excuse yourself to do more and more sin, because if you ever decide to not sin, you're going to accuse yourself of being legalistic, and it seems like you get stuck back into your problem of legalism, but all it's doing is building a path in you to excuse sin. And what ends up happening is you get stuck. It's like getting stuck between two mirrors where you're either legalistic or you go very greasy. It's like you can't get out of that. It's like to the legalistic person, everything else is greasy, but hyper grace is a greasy message where you excuse yourself to sin. So to the hyper grace person, the more he stays in that message and goes down that path, what he's calling grace is very greasy, and you can tell these kind of people because they say everything else is legalism. In other words, they're the ones with the special knowledge of grace, and that if you ever say, oh, you better watch out for this, you got to stop doing that, they'll say, oh, you're being legalistic. So I may come along and preach grace and righteousness, and they'll just call me legalistic. They become very binary in their thought. There's what they're doing is grace. Even though it's greasy, to them it's grace, and everything else is legalistic. Even if you came and talked to them about actual righteousness, they'll just call you legalistic. It's a very dangerous message. It starts off innocent, but as you progress more and more, you can't get out of it. And it will own you, and it will take you to hell.